Now this morning, as I'm flipping battery chargers and admiring the fleet here, I come out and oogle them every morning. Let's be honest, I do oogle them. Anyway, here's what I wanted to say. It has been a long time since we've had a real painting day with the sun out, the wind not blowing, and it's above freezing. So today is that day. It's supposed to be up way above freezing very soon, and the sun is out a little bit, and maybe it'll dry up, and somewhere during the day we're going to get some painting done, I hope. Now if it's really our lucky day, we may really get some painting done, of course. In a super lucky day, we may even get a short ride in the afternoon, but I never plan that far ahead this time of year, because the primary focus of what we're doing here is to get some work done on the 650. And coming out here every morning and doing my oogling thing, I like to check each bike, make sure the mice haven't eaten the tires or something, make sure the battery tenders are on for the next bike in the rotation, and I do what I'm doing right now, the perp walk. I just look back at every year, every winter I've spent on these restorations. Every one of these projects has been a load of fun. I've managed to develop a lot of friends over the course of doing them, and been able to, I hope, help a lot of people, inspire a lot of people to take upon themselves to enjoy the sport of motorcycling and customizing their motorcycles. Now it has stopped raining. It's looking cloudy. They said it's going to be sunny. And you hear off in the background, I bet you'll hear it all day. The tree guy is chopping a tree down about a block from here. And I was hoping he'd do this treezilla here, but we still have to wait. It's amazing. And there's not much maintenance to do in the pond. There's no ice. The fish don't eat all winter. And they just sit there like a car lot. Now, as I come in from outside, there's something worth mentioning. I have found out over the course of many years, I have my parts drying up by the heating vent here. I have found out a really valuable lesson that I've learned. That when it stops raining, after 2 or 3 days of rain, I don't know how long, it's really a good idea to wait until everything kind of dries out and undampens up, because basically you're capturing some of that moisture into the paint when you spray it. So I'm trying to lay out the day as I look in the shop. I'm trying to lay out the day. My stuff's drying up here. What I'll try to do is prep whatever I'm going to paint today and paint as late in the day as possible. Not jump right on painting at early in the morning. I'd rather do some prep, get some parts ready, and in this case we're ready for black on that. We got some other parts that are ready up there, but it'll be to my advantage to wait till the moisture dries out of the air out there. It's still pretty damp. And believe me, the birds don't care one iota whether there's moisture in the air or no moisture in the air, or it dries up, doesn't dry up. They could care less. And after I do my battery tenders, then I do the battery tender that I need. There's my battery tender right there. And while I'm having my coffee and relaxing a few minutes before I get started, I always play some of our ride videos because I really do enjoy the memories when the leaves were changing and when it was summer out, and listening to that cross plane buzzing around the area. Wow. And I think here's just one example. All the time I spent making that exhaust system for the R1, and that was a labor-intensive thing with Huntsman resin, carbon fiber. But boy, every time I ride the bike, I love listening to the music. So I'll have another cup of coffee, finish up, see what Karen needs to do, and then plan my day out here. So what I'm doing is starting off the day where I left off yesterday. These parts here had a little bit of a texture. I want to make sure when I block sand them down, I'll give this one more coat of primer. Let it sit overnight by a heating vent. I wanted to make sure I don't see any of that texture coming through, to like a little traction or whatever it is. But again, good use for a soft block. Try to avoid the corners and edges. And it's kind of like really rubbing it in. I can hear the machine that they're grinding up trees with, and it's a couple blocks from here, I guess, because I can hear it. But they're not doing my tree, and if that tree goes down, Gil is going to get squashed. Bill's house is, and my motorcycle collection becomes a house of pancakes collection. So we're kind of looking forward to Treezilla going bye-bye, but every day that goes by, it's like they're torturing us. And the guy won't give us an exact date. And of course, since I'm not paying him, I don't get to say much about it. But anyway, I thought I'd show this. I will give this one more coat of primer. And by the way, this is a really good thought. When you're planning out a painting day, the best time of the day to paint is in the afternoon. The morning, there's a lot of moisture in the air. And then back in the old days when we were painting butyrate dope or any kind of lacquer, even acrylic lacquer, you wouldn't want any moisture in the air. You don't want to add retarder to the paint. So modern paint, the two-part is a little bit more forgiving, but it's still better. Now see, I can see this. I want to show this on a close-up. I can see that, yeah, we got it. Yeah, that's good. But I can just see, let me show this on a close-up. I can just see the beginning of where that texture is, and I don't want to see that in the final paint. So obviously from this point on, I'll give it one more coat of primer. Now, here's what happens when you paint any plastic. And if I were to use rougher sandpaper, what happens, the first coat of primer dries and it feels like it has hair growing on it. When you get to that point, ignore it. Sand it with 600, put another coat of primer, it'll go away. And that's a good tip. That's something worth knowing if you're going to paint anything made of plastic. Now, this camera really doesn't have a good macro lens, but I wanted to show that. See, we want that to disappear into the paint and not come through the final clear. So we'll let this dry a little bit. Actually, it's warming up a little bit out there now. And I want to get a coat of primer on this and get it up by a heating vent. Now, of course, all plastic. I don't want to have anything plastic that I don't have, not primer, primer sealer. Any of the brands, and Rust-Oleum is good, Duplicolor is good, doesn't really matter. But it's got to say primer sealer. Now, you might be able to hear that guy removing the tree. Take that tree down. I guess we're not high on his priority list. Anyway, we'll get this done, get it up by a heating vent. It actually is warming up out here. It's not bad. I'm so used to this being disappointed in the weather. And that, I guess, later this afternoon, that'll be ready for some black. And we just got a whole quart of Bentley black, so we're ready to get into this. Now, sometimes detailing out these smaller parts takes way more time than you think it does, but always worth it. To me, always worth it. The time you spend doing any of these little details. Now, a little example is that the little treaded area there. You know, maybe it wouldn't show up in the paint if I didn't do this extra step. Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I don't want it to. I don't want to take a chance. I want this to be, I have that thing in my mind that I want this to be as good as I can possibly make it. And it's as simple. It's absolutely as simple as that. That's how I want it. And I always say there are things, and Karen and I have this saying that we have, that it makes the decision easy. In Karen's case, it's our health issues. Anytime we have a doctor visit and anything else, the doctor visit has priority. So we don't have to make that decision. We've already made the decision ahead of time. In my case with a paint job, if I know I have to add 1 day to the project, or 1 hour, 1 minute, or $1, I don't care, because the overall project, the project when I'm done, when it's sitting out there like the FZR or the 750, and all of the work is done, I basically have it for the rest of my life. And I'm not sure if you can see the texture that I'm trying to cover up. So I just didn't want to see that, and I don't know, there's another part up by the instruments I haven't made a decision on, but I know the way it was, I'll be happier if that's just like a smooth gloss Bentley black part on the final motorcycle. That's killing me that I can hear that thing going, and I know they should be doing Treezilla. I'm getting bored waiting for them. Anyway, I got a couple of tips here that I think will be worthwhile. It's always to your advantage not to put any primer on that you don't need. Primer just makes the part thicker, with one exception. If you're filling in an imperfection, like when you have Bondo work, and so far this motorcycle has, for all purposes, no Bondo work. So once that part is filled, I don't want to, as an example, I don't want to just have 5 coats of primer, have this paint get thicker. Thicker paint is more prone to crack. Thinner paint, less prone to crack. But anyway, Now here's a little tip I use. You see, these are the last 5 cans of primer that I've used. In fact, there's 5 altogether. So because what's happening is I'm going to sand these coats of primer. These cans have, let's say, a very little bit left in them. So I save them for anything that I'm going to sand. Now when I'm going to put that last coat of primer on, I'll take a relatively new can because it's less prone to spit. And when you start a can of primer, you'll notice it goes on smooth because you have all the air pressure is still in there. It just tends to spray smoother. At the end of a can, oh my God, it's like me getting up in the morning. It's like, oh gee, and if you're going to sand it, who cares if there's a little imperfection or spit in it? But then when we get to actually do, I know we got one kid, I better go get some primer. We do have some primer. Another thing too, I wanted to mention this because we're trying to share information more than anything. Rust-Oleum filler primer. Now, I don't want to use this on plastic, but if I were doing metal and I had Bondo, this would be a good way to fill it in. The paint then gets, oh, I got another can of that. Oh wait, I got enough now. So again, for doing what you're going to sand and then a nice fresh can, like when we do the fairing side, and we know that last coat before we put the black on. And typically I like to do 1 coat. If there's imperfections in it, sand it and put a very light second coat. Keep the primer as thin as possible whenever possible. I don't want a big giant thick primer buildup if possible. Now just as an example, there's no cracks, there's no Bondo, there's nothing here. Everything looks smooth, there's no runs, no drips. This one we did yesterday. And it's got 1 thin coat of primer. This is ready for the black. And remember, the primer is just acting like glue to hold the paint on. It's the only purpose here. We're not trying to fill anything and I know people that have, in fact I have, so I know this is true, that they don't want to primer it. They have, like in our case, the fairing was in pretty good shape. You could just put the black right over that. But then what happens, a lot of times you need 2 or 3 coats of black. I don't know. The primer, the best formula I've ever seen is when you can get 1 very thin coat of primer, 2 if there's any imperfections like we have on those little shredded parts, and it's ready for the black. This will just be a tack rag and ready for black. Another thing too, I never, and I know I've done this and it's been a problem, I never take a part that's been in prime for any amount of time and then I say, oh, let me prep wall it down. The prep wall tends to melt the primer if you put it on too thick. So these are just little tips that I think people like Scott that are starting down a project where they're going to do a lot of the painting themselves and try to get into the learning curve. It's steep in the beginning because there's a lot to learn, but then it's very rewarding. Once you see you can paint something, it opens the door to being able to, you can do the motorcycle of your dreams for basically very little money. Okay, that's ready to hang up by the heating vent. I think we're ready to, yep. Doesn't look like well, maybe we'll need a second coat. I don't know, once it dries. We'll see. And it's always good when that heat is on. That heat is our best friend. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the black on these 2 parts. They've dried up. They're ready, and then we can see how we want the day to play out. Everything's drying up beautifully up by the heating vent. Only one little issue. As As I'm bringing the last part in, I went to take the fairing out to paint it, and I got a couple little raindrops coming down. Nothing serious, but obviously that's going to be the end of that until it stops raining. So on a day that there was supposed to be no chance of rain, I can see we have just a few raindrops falling, just enough to make it that we can't paint out here now. Now, it was my hope today to get this in black, but you know what? I have learned, and I've shared what I've learned, a valuable lesson. If there's any chance you're going to get raindrops in your paint, well, if you prime it and going to sand it, it won't really matter that much. But I don't want to take any chances now, and because I have other work to do, this is leapfrogging. This is leapfrogging at its best. If we weren't leapfrogging, we'd be dead in the water right now. So lucky for me, I have that part that's ready to sand, and while we have this chance of drizzling rain, I can look down and my parts are drying. This is the whole beauty again of leapfrogging. Because I don't get to a point in the day where I'm prone to rush it, or that I just force it through and I'm sorry I did. And if worse comes to worse, you know, I will just sit and admire my work. I'll just oogle it, as I said this morning. I don't mind doing that either. And while we're waiting for it to stop raining, good excuse to have another cup of coffee. This one's for you, Scott. And my birds always enjoy when I come up for coffee because I refill their feeder with seeds. Generous fool that I am. You guys got to show me more love. So look, I'm looking at your tush. That's it. We do enjoy feeding the birds. What's happened is I can still vaguely see the imprint of that textured thing, even though I've sanded most of it down. So the answer is good old 600 sandpaper. This will never hurt to re-sand the part, re-radius all the edges. You just shoot another coat of black on it. As soon as that rain stops, I'll get the parts prepped. They said no rain today, but of course, weathermen lie. I really do want to get that, even if I have to put 2 extra coats of black on. By sanding between coats, I'll just get that to all those little grooves. Now, another choice would have been, and I didn't want to do this, would be to take the power sander and just sand that right off. But that power sander leaves scratches that would have been just as bad. So what's happened is this is 6 of one, half a dozen of another. Now, if I can get in between the raindrops here with this part, I'll feel like it's another major little thing off the list. But every little time I can get something up by that heating vent drying, I'm one step ahead of the game. Every time I go through this process of sanding these parts, there's always little imperfections that come up to the surface. And to get this perfect, it doesn't matter. Right now, it wouldn't matter if I sand the black several times. The black is just getting that final little, I guess, a perfect base before I put clear on it. And keep in mind, black reflects the light and the flaws, so a black paint job has to be perfect. You paint white or flat black, all bets are off. When it's black, it's almost like you're saying to somebody, okay, find a mistake. Well, the way this day is playing out, I hate to even put the camera outside because it's just enough of a drizzle that you got to work in between the raindrops here. But we did get 2 coats on this. We have 2 coats on everything else that we wanted to get today. And the prediction is it's going to rain the rest of the day. So I think we're pretty much at the point of no return here. So on this very eclectic day, I eventually got all 3 of the parts into their second coat of black. And I think that'll be ready for clear, but I definitely don't want to shoot any clear today. But it has let up, the rain has let up, and I'm going to try to get some black on that fairing part. Now, since I'll put more than 1 coat of black on there, I guess it won't really matter. But I'm just hoping I beat the raindrops. I'm not going to be right in the middle of this, and this day is so unpredictable. Just tack rigging this down, get ready to paint it. I cannot believe how unpredictable this day is. And thank you, Turbo Steve, for the new tack rags. So far we've been very, very lucky with the day. But that's the whole thing with the weather this time of year. You've got to be able to bounce in and out as the weather. The weather can be your best friend and it can be your worst enemy too. Now luckily for us we have more than one heating vent here. This one is really not my first choice, but we've run out of room at the other side. And as you can see, we get into the part of the year where it gets really interesting. So we actually managed to use up a really unpredictable day. Unpredictable would be giving it the benefit of a doubt. We have parts up by the heating vent. I'll put the paint in the gun, get ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow is predicted to be no chance of rain and maybe even some sun. Wow, can you imagine? Can you even imagine in your wildest dream? But as we all know, they lie. They lie like a rug. And that's why we leapfrog. Now an unpredictable day just got even more unpredictable. We have some guests, a neighbor's friend, that he's going to bring his family over here. They do some work on cars and motorcycles, so we're going to have a visit and show them our little baby collection here. But I thought the day was over, but you know what? It's never over. Not in this shop. I'm ready to make the ending for the video, and it ain't happening. Let's get a picture of this. We always welcome visitors, but not aliens from another planet. Jesus. What do you got there? Are you going on a terrorist mission this afternoon? Holy moly. Hey guys, just want to make you world famous.
Perfect. That's my grandson. He's a Marine.
What? Thank you for your service.
Anytime.
And you, thank you for everything. What do you got? Are you going to go to rocket to the moon, or what the hell are we doing
That's
here?
what this is.
Holy great.
Anyway.
Okay, so you want to know about car paint. Oh boy, you didn't come to the right place. Yeah, that's a color I came up with, Yama Yellow. We're going to paint Ted's fly trap that color. And
No, right.
No.
Black or dark charcoal gray.
Yeah, flat black we don't paint here, I'm sorry. So we always love sharing our collection with our friends, our neighbors, but now it's time. Now the video really is over. See you tomorrow.